Pharaohs were believed to be the link between the gods and the people. They were responsible for maintaining Ma'at, the cosmic order and balance. Pharaoh, famous pharaohs like Ramses II and Tutankhamun still captivate us today. Ramses II, also known as Ramses the Great, ruled for 66 years. He was a prolific builder and military leader. Tutankhamun, while a minor pharaoh, became famous due to his well-preserved tomb. The pharaoh's power was symbolized by specific regalia. The double crown represented rule over Upper and Lower Egypt. The crook and flail symbolized their role as shepherd of the people and their power to punish. Pharaohs had many responsibilities. They led religious ceremonies, commanded the army, and oversaw government. They were also expected to build monuments and temples. Ancient Egyptian society was highly stratified. At the top was the pharaoh, followed by nobles and priests. These elites held significant power and wealth. Vizier, nobles often held high positions in government or the military. Priests were responsible for maintaining the temples and performing rituals. Below the elites were the scribes. These were highly educated individuals who could read and write hieroglyphs. They were essential for record-keeping and administration. Artisan. The middle class consisted of artisans, merchants, and skilled workers. These included sculptors, painters, and craftsmen. Merchants facilitated trade within Egypt and with other lands. Priest. At the bottom of the social pyramid were farmers and laborers. They made up the majority of the population. Farmers worked the land along the Nile, producing food for the entire society. Despite their low status, these workers were essential to Egypt's prosperity. Talent and hard work could sometimes lead to social advancement. Religion was central to ancient Egyptian life. They believed in many gods, each with specific roles. Ra, the sun god, was one of the most important. Osiris ruled the underworld while his wife Isis represented motherhood and magic. Priest. The concept of the afterlife was crucial in Egyptian religion. They believed that death was not the end, but a transition. The goal was to achieve eternal life in the afterworld. This belief led to elaborate burial practices and tomb construction. The Book of the Dead was a collection of spells and instructions for the afterlife. It was often buried with the deceased. These texts provided guidance on how to navigate the dangers of the underworld. They also included spells to help the deceased pass the final judgment. In this judgment, the heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at. If the heart was lighter, the deceased could enter the afterlife. Priest. Egyptians believed that the body needed to be preserved for the afterlife. This led to the practice of mummification. The process was complex and expensive. Mummification was a crucial part of ancient Egyptian burial practices. The process was designed to preserve the body for the afterlife. It was believed that the soul needed a physical body to inhabit. Without mummification, the deceased couldn't achieve eternal life. The mummification process took about 70 days. It began with the removal of internal organs. The brain was removed through the nose. The other organs were preserved separately in canopic jars. The heart, believed to be the seat of intelligence and emotion, was left in place. The body was then dried using natron, a type of salt. This prevented decay and preserved the body's shape. After drying, the body was wrapped in linen bandages. Amulets were placed between the layers for protection. A death mask, often made of gold for pharaohs, was placed over the head. Finally, the mummy was placed in a series of nested coffins. The outermost coffin was often a stone sarcophagus. This elaborate process shows the importance Egyptians placed on the afterlife.
Section 5. Architectural marvels, pyramids, and the Great Sphinx. The pyramids are perhaps the most famous symbols of ancient Egypt. These massive structures were built as tombs for the pharaohs. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built for Pharaoh Khufu, is the largest.
Building these monuments required immense labor and engineering skill. They represent the power of the pharaohs and the Egyptian belief in the afterlife. Pyramid construction evolved over time. The first was the step pyramid of Djoser. Later came the true pyramids with smooth sides.
Building a pyramid was a massive undertaking. It required careful planning and a large workforce. Stones were cut and transported from quarries. They were then stacked and fitted precisely.
The Great Sphinx is another iconic Egyptian monument. It sits near the pyramids of Giza. The Sphinx has the head of a human and the body of a lion. It's believed to represent Pharaoh Khafre. These monuments have endured for thousands of years. Section 6. Daily life in ancient Egypt, family and work. Daily life in ancient Egypt centered around family and work. The family unit was the core of society. Extended families often lived together. Children were highly valued. They were seen as a blessing from the gods. Parents were responsible for their children's education and moral upbringing. Work was an important part of daily life. Most Egyptians were farmers. They worked the fertile land along the Nile. The river's annual flood was crucial for agriculture. Farmers grew crops like wheat, barley, and flax. They also raised cattle, sheep, and goats. The agricultural cycle shaped the rhythm of Egyptian life. Bread and beer were staples of the Egyptian diet. Section 7. Women in ancient Egypt, rights and roles. Women in ancient Egypt had more rights than in many other ancient societies. They could own property and businesses. They could initiate divorce and represent themselves in court. Some women even held high positions in government and religion. This relative equality was unusual for the time.
One of the most famous female rulers was Hatshepsut. She ruled as pharaoh for over 20 years. Hatshepsut took on the full regalia and titles of a male pharaoh. She oversaw a period of peace and prosperity.
Other notable women included Nefertiti and Cleopatra. In daily life, women were primarily responsible for the household. They raised children and managed domestic affairs. Many women also worked outside the home. They could be priestesses, weavers, or even doctors. Women often assisted their husbands in family businesses. Section 8. Festivals and celebrations, honoring gods and nature. Festivals played a crucial role in ancient Egyptian life. They were times of joy and religious devotion.
Many festivals were tied to the agricultural cycle. Others honored specific gods or pharaohs.
These celebrations brought communities together. They reinforced social bonds and religious beliefs. One of the most important festivals was the Opet festival. It celebrated the marriage of Amun and Mut.
Statues of the gods were paraded from Karnak to Luxor. People lined the streets to watch and celebrate.
The pharaoh played a central role in the rituals. The festival of Wepet Renpet marked the Egyptian New Year. It coincided with the annual flooding of the Nile.
This was a time of renewal and hope. People exchanged gifts and made offerings to the gods.
Section 9. Education and knowledge, scribes and hieroglyphs. Education in ancient Egypt was highly valued, but not universal.
Formal schooling was primarily for boys from wealthy families. They trained to become scribes, priests, or government officials.
The education system was rigorous and focused on practical skills. Reading, writing, and mathematics were the core subjects.
Scribes held an esteemed position in society. They were the keepers of knowledge and records.
Scribes recorded everything from religious texts to tax records. The ability to read and write hieroglyphs was a valuable skill. It could lead to high positions in government or temples.
Many young men aspired to become scribes to improve their social status.
Hieroglyphs were the formal writing system of ancient Egypt. They were complex and beautiful. Each symbol could represent a sound or an entire word.
Hieroglyphs were used for religious texts and formal inscriptions. For everyday writing, a simpler script called hieratic was used.
Section 10. Ancient Egyptian art, symbolism, and beauty. Art was an integral part of ancient Egyptian culture. It wasn't just decorative, it had deep religious and symbolic meanings.
Egyptian art followed strict rules and conventions. These rules remained largely unchanged for thousands of years.
This consistency reflects the stability of Egyptian culture. Painting and relief sculpture were common art forms. They often depicted scenes from daily life or religious myths.
The human figure was usually shown in profile, but the eye and shoulders were shown from the front. This style made figures easy to recognize.
Colors were symbolic. Green represented new life, while gold symbolized the gods.
Sculpture was another important art form. Statues of gods and pharaohs were common. They were often made of stone or precious metals.
Section 11. Legacy of Ancient Egypt, influence on modern world. The legacy of ancient Egypt continues to influence our world today. Their achievements in architecture, art, and engineering still amaze us. The pyramids remain one of the world's great wonders. Egyptian art has influenced countless artists throughout history. Its distinctive style is immediately recognizable. Egyptian medicine was advanced for its time. They understood the importance of cleanliness in treating wounds. Their knowledge of herbs and minerals formed the basis of many medicines. Perhaps most importantly, ancient Egypt has captured our imagination. Please like and subscribe for more travel and history cultures all over the world.